The London system is one of the most reliable chess openings, giving white a safe setup while keeping strong attacking chances. Let's explore how it works. Your main plan in the London system is very straightforward. You develop your pieces in a simple and effective way. First, you create this pyramid of pawns. Then, you position your pieces behind and around them. This gives you a very solid and harmonious setup. Your light squared bishop controls important diagonals across the board. Your dark squared bishop is also very active, controlling another set of key squares. Both knights are well placed. The knight on the king side has a strong grip on the square e5, and you will likely jump there in the future. The other knight on the queen side plays a more defensive role. It controls an important square so that black cannot occupy it with their knight. Otherwise, you would immediately have two attackers on that square, allowing you to win a pawn right away. Altogether, this structure gives you a safe, flexible, and powerful position. One of the main ways your opponents will try to counter the London system is by developing their light squared bishop and offering you an exchange. In most cases, you do not want to capture that bishop on d6 because doing so would only help them by developing their queen for free. So, what should you do instead? Most tutorials about the London system suggest retreating your dark squared bishop to g3, hoping your opponent will capture it. If they do, it opens the H file for your rook, which can be useful in your attack. The problem, however, is that in reality most opponents will not take on g3. Instead, they will simply castle or continue with other normal developing moves, which leaves you without any real benefit. That is why there is a stronger and more creative approach. Instead of retreating your dark squared bishop to g3, you can bring your knight to the square e5. By doing this, you lock the position, avoid unnecessary exchanges, and place your knight in a powerful outpost. This knight becomes one of your key attacking pieces, supporting your future plans while being very difficult for your opponent to challenge. It controls many important squares, and neutralizing it is far from easy. This way, you stand out from the typical London system players and put real pressure on your opponent. Let's say your opponent castles, and you continue calmly with your usual London system setup. At some point, that knight you placed on a 5 will become extremely irritating for them. If necessary, you can even support it with your other knight. Now, if they try to capture it with their knight, that is simply a blunder, because immediately you will win back material and end up ahead. If instead they trade with their bishop, that is definitely a stronger option, but it is still favorable for you. After you recapture, you not only replace the knight, but also push their knight away. Notice that your queen controls two important squares, while your bishop and knight together cover the square e4. This means their knight has to retreat, usually to e8 or d7. Either way, this is great for you. You have forced them backwards into a more passive position. From there, their knight may aim at your pawn, so you defend it. But if they try to attack it again, that is when the real danger begins for them. Since their king has no knight on f6 for protection, you can execute the classic Greek gift sacrifice with bishop takes h7 check. This unleashes a quick and deadly attack, and suddenly you are winning on the spot. You are threatening checkmate, and if the rook moves, you simply capture the pawn on f7 with check, which seals the game. Your knight on a 5 is also central to many tactical ideas. For example, imagine your opponent plays the natural-looking move pawn to c5. In this position, it is already a mistake. You respond with bishop to b5 check, and suddenly they are in serious trouble. They cannot block with knight to c6 because your knight controls that square, and if they still try it, you will simply capture. You already have two attackers on that point. If instead your opponent tries bishop to d7, once you exchange bishops, the problem remains. They cannot safely recapture, because their bishop on d6 will be left undefended, and you will simply win a piece. If they try to trade bishops first, you do not rush to recapture. Instead, you insert an in-between move. Knight takes c5 with discovered check. This not only checks the king, but also saves your knight. After they respond to the check, you recapture the bishop on f4, ending up a full piece ahead. By knowing these tactical patterns, you transform the London system from a calm, solid setup into a dangerous attacking weapon. That said, I know this can feel a little overwhelming, so many variations, and it might seem like you'll forget them right after watching. But let's simplify. Suppose your opponent avoids the earlier mistake of pawn to c5 and instead just castles. You calmly continue building your usual London system setup. Even here, black is not out of danger. Imagine they play another normal-looking move, knight to d7, simply developing. Guess what? That is another tactical blunder. You immediately strike with knight takes f7, forking the queen and the bishop on d6. Once your knight is recaptured, their bishop on d6 falls, and you have won the pawn on f7 with a comfortable position. Now, what if your opponent doesn't follow this path at all? No problem. You continue with your solid setup. That knight on e5 remains a thorn in their side. If they try to attack it, you defend it. And if they try to attack it again, the weakness of their king becomes a real issue. The moment the knight leaves f6, the king is stripped of its defender, and you can exploit this. This time, you leap forward with knight to g5, doubling the pressure on the pawn at h7. Even if they try to block with pawn to g6, you shatter the kingside with a brilliant knight sacrifice. After that, your queen delivers a decisive check, taking advantage of the pinned pawn that cannot capture. If the king steps aside, you follow with another check, ripping open the defense. He cannot escape. If the king goes to one square, bishop to g5 delivers checkmate on the spot. If the king retreats, you keep hammering the position, each move threatening mate. And if your sacrificed knight is finally taken, the attack still rolls through with a forced checkmate sequence. This shows how that single knight on e5 turns the London system from a slow, solid setup into a direct attacking weapon that can punish even the most standard responses. There is another move that everyday players use often, but that most classical London system tutorials almost never mention. That move is knight to c6. At first, you respond with the standard development move knight to f3. Now you are at a crossroads. Some opponents will play bishop to g4, trying to disturb your setup, while others will choose the quieter move pawn to e6. Let us look at both options. If your opponent plays pawn to e6, you simply continue with your usual London system structure. When they later challenge your bishop and offer to exchange, here is an idea I really like, and it is almost completely unknown. You do nothing. You calmly continue your normal development and let them make the capture. Once they trade on f4, it only helps you, because your pawn recaptures and gains a powerful hold on the square e5. From this moment forward, they will never be able to break open the center successfully, and you are already better. At this point, one of the most common moves played by black is rook to e8. Why this is so popular, nobody knows. But the moment you place your knight on e5, the pressure becomes extremely unpleasant for them. Either they must allow that knight to sit there forever, or if they capture it, your pawn advances forward again, this time even stronger. It is a funny detail. Your pawn that started on a 3 could not walk forward in a straight line like normal. It zigzagged its way up the board. That is why I like to call this idea the drunk pawn variation. But make no mistake, it is not clumsy. It is actually very powerful. Once advanced, that pawn attacks their knight, while your queen controls key squares, and your knight and bishop cover others. Their knight is forced backward once more, and as soon as that knight is gone, the same attacking ideas return. You immediately strike with queen to h5, threatening queen takes h7 checkmate. Even if they defend, your attack is rolling. You can push your h-pawn forward to open the h-file and checkmate, or you can bring another knight into the attack. Either way, the position is already winning for white. This shows how even against natural moves like knight to c6 or pawn to e6, the London system gives you fresh and dangerous attacking chances. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.